yourself to the council.
I'm Ed Mullins, Project Control.
Jeff Haverstrom, Project Control.
I've known Jeff for a long time. I worked for him when he was on the Borough Council, so he didn't get fired. It's interesting when you work for a consultant, right? And so
Yes, it is.
We enjoy it. Bernie's a good town. My name is Scott Pollica, and when we talked about presenting this final master plan document, we did some redrafting because we wanted to make sure that the benefits to the Pecos community as a whole were very clear. So, I'm glad we did that given the discussion we just had. So, by way of background, we are a firm that thinks about what a place will be 100 years from now. And we have some significant experience here in West Texas. We did the downtown plan for Odessa 3 years ago, creating the context for the new conference center and Marriott Hotel. We've worked in Goliad, and we have a fair amount of experience around the country in smaller communities where you've got a lot of history, a lot of complexity, a lot of different opinions about do we move from the past into the future and how do we do that. And we also have a lot of experience working in high growth areas, in larger places, Salt Lake City region, Dallas-Fort Worth, obviously Houston. And what's interesting about Pecos is you guys have both. You have a small community with a lot of history, and not everybody agrees on how to move forward, but you have a lot of growth too, which is very, very rare in this day and age. Most communities like yours that have continued to go through the boom and bust are in the bust. I would say probably a few percent of communities like yours are in the boom around the United States. Most are not doing well. They're struggling. They don't have a lot of jobs. They don't have a lot of economy. So I was listening to the conversation in the back, and I know that this is a tough issue, but somehow I got the DNA that also translates into maybe I'm a bit naive, but this is definitely, the glass is more half full than not. And so what we want to do with y'all is to try to harness the opportunity in a way that, as I said, this is going to be a great place 100 years from now. If we think in those terms and we back up, then we're thinking multiple generations. What do we do now to make sure that the next few years is also something that you all feel is the right thing to do? But if we don't take advantage of the opportunity and think about investment, where there's a tremendous amount of investment being made, but not necessarily in the right place for your community, then what is it that we can do to suggest a bit of a shift? So, as you all, maybe some of you all in the community don't know, but the council has been participating in partnership with the county, the hospital district, and the school district for many, many months to try and figure out how collectively to take advantage of all the investment that's being made here in the oil patch. And I think what's important about that is we don't see that very often. It's pretty rare when communities have their different jurisdictions get together. I don't think Dallas and Fort Worth have ever had their councils meet, and I know that they've never had the Tarrant County, Dallas County, Fort Worth, and Dallas County's city council meet. So I think y'all are off to a good start in that regard. We've already introduced the team that was hired to do this. You saw a similar map here. I want to also reinforce that this is not West Pecos, this is Pecos. What is, when we talk about the West Pecos initiative, I think this next slide I think is really instructive. We're really adding on to Pecos. We're not creating a place to forget about the original town, just the opposite. We also have a specialty in downtowns, as I said, Odessa. We led the redevelopment plan for McKinney, for Rogers, Arkansas, for Owensboro, Kentucky, very sensitive to the history and what it takes to reinforce investment. One of the outcomes, and we'll talk about this in a sec, third bullet is, the core place we're in right now is gonna benefit if we do West Pecos correctly, because it's gonna bring investment, and it's going to create, the rising tides lifts all boats. We've seen this happen over and over again. And so, the growth of tax base, and most importantly, the creation of jobs that are not dependent necessarily on the cycles of the energy industry. And that, to me, may be the most important opportunity. And in this environment right now, in this development cycle that you've seen around the country, places that have aligned job creation with neighborhood creation are the ones that are going to be doing great in the next cycle. The ones that just focus on the near-term jobs, but they don't build their capacity in terms of community and neighborhood, they're in trouble. The ones that are gonna just build in the real estate sector, but that, I'm sorry, I thought I turned that off. The ones that are building in the real estate sector, my apologies. Stop. I thought I turned it off. The ones that are building in the real estate sector, but they're not creating jobs, they're gonna be in trouble. An extreme example of that, how many of y'all are familiar with Phoenix in Arizona? You remember when the last recession hit? Phoenix was hit super hard. Why? Because they had a very robust real estate growth, but they didn't create the jobs. And Mr. Perryman can talk more about this in a sec. So the need. Y'all are busting at the seams, but you all are not the ones that are doing the busting, right? Your infrastructure is crumbling. It's as if there's a, actually I've never seen it. It's shocking to me what happens in the morning. You have rush hour, but it's trucks, logistics. It's amazing. I think it's unprecedented. I've never seen it. It's crazy. Well, those of you that may benefit directly from the oil patch, that's great, but those of you that don't, taxpayers are going to end up having to pay the bill for a lot of this. You don't have the capacity over here with staff to keep up with this. You need tax base growth. You're just not going to have a community that will sustain itself over time if you don't build some of your own capacity. And so the opportunity is very basic. The energy companies are spending millions and millions and millions of dollars on housing. But when those man camps go, there's no investment left here. Now, people made money, they were paid. And those of you that have businesses in the oil patch, that's great. And for those that save, that's great. But there's no capital investment in the essential infrastructure of your community. And the most powerful way to sustain investment in a community is through neighborhoods. It's the village. It is the essential DNA of our American economy. Neighborhoods. We're based on neighborhoods. The original town of Pecos City was based on neighborhoods. So what we're doing is very simple. We're saying, why don't we shift some of the spending on the man camps over to permanent housing, rental and for sale, so that there's a capital asset left, as opposed to a bunch of trailers that are hauled off somewhere else. And so that's the bottom line. I don't know, maybe I've oversimplified it, but that's the bottom line. So this is a quality of life issue. This is a housing and jobs alignment issue, as I mentioned. And this is, sometimes it scares people, but this is the opportunity for what I think is the best of our capitalist system, which is government supporting business, not making it a giveaway, but government supporting business in those that do the best. There's certain things the government shouldn't do. The government shouldn't be a builder, but if the government can help position infrastructure that'll be here for generations so that the neighborhoods that are developed are quality neighborhoods, when those jobs are created so that it's an attractive place, hospitals have a hard time recruiting doctors and nurses. You want the ability to say there's a really nice place to live. When you have choice, you have multiple neighborhoods. And so that's, I think, the key. Also, this is maybe the most incredible time to be alive if you're in the technology, real estate, medical, communication, mobility sectors. The innovation is unbelievable. Pecos could actually be a global center for innovation in how a additional significant part of the community is developed using state-of-the-art construction technology. By the way, the construction industry, right guys, is very slow to adopt.
Yes.
Very slow. But there are great opportunities out there. More efficient homes, different types of energy. And I read about a month ago the Shell 2017 annual report. Even Shell was talking about moving towards an energy focus, not an oil focus. Ford Motor, they're not going to be a car manufacturer anymore. They're going to be a mobility service company. And what? See, you got the disease. They couldn't get a hold of me, so they needed.
It's an alarm.
The reason I'm saying that is
You'll have to pay a toll to get out.
Cheesecake will be here at the next council.
I'm not touching tolls right now. You know, Rod and I were talking earlier. You said this is the third largest oil field in the world.
That's right. Permian Basin.
Think about that. This is an economy that is absolutely, economic development director here. This is the intersection that maybe is unique in the world right now, what you have. It really is. It's unbelievable, Mayor. You guys are, Council, you all are, a lot of communities, I think, that would love to trade what you have. The thing that we like is, when we talk about neighborhoods, though, is, to me, neighborhoods are places where you have a range of housing, you can walk. Granted, it's a tough environment to walk in, but again, are there technologies that create opportunities for ways for you to move around so that there's a cohesion in the neighborhoods, that the new neighborhoods are being built. The reason that's important is because you also are looking at a question of affordable housing. The economy here is heating up. Some people are going to be priced out of their homes. Affordable housing oftentimes is a problem of the lack of supply. When there's more pressure to purchase, more demand than supply, prices go up. Part of this initiative is to keep up with the demand for housing. Most importantly, we're proposing that there's a range of housing in all these new neighborhoods, so that when you move up and down your life cycle, your cycle in your life, you get a raise, you get a new job, you get married, you want to retire. If you don't want to leave your neighborhood, you don't have to leave your neighborhood. And that's what Pecos originally was built on, right? Well, if we create neighborhoods again, where you can move up and down in your life and not have to leave the community that you've been with, I think that's really powerful. And a lot of communities around the country are suffering because people have to move out of where they live, and they have to break their community bonds in order to downsize, or to upsize, or to do whatever, or to bring their parents to live with them, because we don't allow garage apartments, for example. So with that as a backdrop, and I'm emphasizing it because this is a big deal. The reason I love this work is, think about what's going to be here in 100 years when nobody knows who I am, right? Aaron, you might, council members, you might have. I think it's going to be a big deal. I think they're going to, a story will be written about this moment in time. It's exciting. It really is. And for us, when Rod mentioned to me what he thought would be a good idea that Mayor, you all started already to think about, to not harness the economy that is here every day, to me, it would be a travesty. And so we, as urban designers and planners and development consultants, working with your staff and the other team members, we wanted to reinforce that we're not just drawing pictures for housing. We're not just drawing pictures for neighborhood pocket spaces. We want you to know that we're taking responsibility to figure out how to get this done. The details, we don't need to go into too much, because I'm happy to answer any questions, and there's going to be time. But the bottom line is, there is a way to create, through the jurisdictions, the 4 jurisdictions, low cost of borrowing money that would benefit and be repaid through the economy of that new development. Because the economy of the oil patch is so hot, and interest rates are still low, especially municipal bond interest rates, it's the tax exempt, it's the perfect time to take on some long-term debt that will be paid off by the folks that are actually benefiting from it. Secondly, I already mentioned it, the partnership opportunities to bring in the best in class, and to also, for those local, they're in the business, there's a lot of development that's going to be unfolding. If you think about it, tens of thousands of new housing units, and maybe some additional bars, you know? I mean, great neighborhoods always have great bars. So, I don't say that when I'm working up in the Salt Lake City area for the LDS Church. We do work for the LDS Church. But the younger generation, they'll go out with us. They won't drink, but they'll go out with us. You really do need to think about how to move around. I live in downtown Dallas. Yeah. Took a picture of a guy the other day, in a suit, in a tie, on a scooter, going to a meeting. That's where we're at, micro transit. It's crazy. You all have an opportunity to do that here. You can do that here. So there's a master planning process that we've gone through. We've assessed the property, which you all talked about a little bit earlier. We have been doing interviews. Rod and our partner, Eric Greenman, Lamstar Engineering, looking very carefully at how to put together the pieces with the guidance from staff and folks in the real estate industry, so that these neighborhoods can evolve, as I said earlier. And what we developed after looking at the site, and let me digress real quick on the question of why does the city need to acquire some of the land initially? It's because it gives the city the ability to tell the market, this is what you're going to do, and you have to meet a certain threshold of quality and outcome so that the development is not crap. That's not a technical term, I guess, but it's this. Let me say it a different way. It weeds, I'm going to say this, it weeds out the bottom feeders. It gets everybody, gives them the opportunity to step up their game. You can deliver an affordable home in a neighborhood if it's simple, if it's constructed well, because in a neighborhood, you're paying for the neighborhood and not just the home, and so you don't have to have all the bells and whistles. That's really important. So buying some of the land gives us the ability to issue this low-cost money to put in essential infrastructure, enough to tell the market that this is a very serious opportunity, as opposed to waiting for a bunch of developers to sort of mingle around each other, bump into each other, and create a cohesive 100-year neighborhood. Because I think it's an extremely good use of your tax dollars, because the return is going to be a multiple, and we have a lot of experience in that regard. Also, this is an opportunity to improve and work with TxDOT and the county, the regional roads, and we'll talk about it a little more in a second. I don't need to go into the ownership. I've already talked about the organizing principles. Here's the master plan that we came up with. Rob's going to go into a little more detail. We like to master plan at the building scale to show what it could look like. This is a series of villages with a different emphasis. Jobs, healthcare, entertainment, but all of it will be some version of mixed use, mixed residential, different types of residents, townhomes, apartments for rent, small units, larger units. God forbid, smaller lots, it's okay. It's what you have down here. Served you well for a long time. So we'll get back into that detail in a second. But I do think it's important to have one of the foremost experts, both in terms of just projecting what will happen in terms of the economy and the market, but also he knows the oil patch. So, and he's been the state's economist for many, many years. So we're gonna turn it over to Mr. Perriman, Dr. Perriman.
Whatever. My kids call me much worse.
We've never met until today. I saw him on TV, so I know him. So his work's fabulous. To talk about a little more what's really going on here and why the environmental community, for example, has decided this is an eye-opener for me. They're done taking on big oil. They want to partner with big oil. They want to help them innovate. Because there's going to be oil forever. This notion of running out of oil ain't going to happen based on the fracking technology and the new finds, both on the north side of the Permian and down here in the Delaware Basin. So,
Thanks. And I'll tell you in advance, I'm not very good at these quick looking PowerPoints and stuff, so forgive me for that. I usually just talk, but they put these nice slides together, so I'm going to use them. Okay. I'm Ray Perryman. I'm an economist here in Texas. My office is in Waco. I live in Odessa. That's because 27 years ago, I married the mayor of Odessa. And when I heard you going through those items very quickly, it brought back lots of memories.
and we just figured out that she was on our citizens
That's what I'm
committee for
saying.
the downtown.
Yeah. And so although we haven't had the privilege of working together before, I've seen a lot of their work because of the outstanding work they did in Odessa. And before I start, I'm sure I'm the only person in the room that doesn't know the answer to this question. But Mr. Moon, I have to ask you, are you related to the baseball player?
I am him.
Not to my knowledge.
That's your knowledge.
Follow the line back far enough where we all get to Adam.
Yeah, I understand, but I was just curious because of the name, but he had a great career but he died, over in College Station, just I think earlier this year. He had a very.
People ask me if I was related to Warren Moon, the quarterback. Yeah, we're twins.
Adopted.
There you go, absolutely, it can happen, it can happen. Before I do anything else, I said I normally don't use graphics at all, so it's weird, I'm trying to run in an extra one at the beginning here before we do this. Can you throw that one up that we talked about? I just remembered I emailed this to a friend the other day, and I decided I asked him if he could get it on the screen, he said he could, so I'm gonna see if we can make this work. And it's what I did for an article, yeah, that's it right there. And it's busy, and I'll kind of just walk you through what it says. But it's what I did for an article they asked me to write for the Bakken Shale 2 or 3 months ago, and I never used graphics even in articles, but one of my young technical people came up to me and said, take a look at this. And I said, yeah, you're right, there's something here. And what it is, it's just a history from going back to 2008 up to a couple of months back of oil rigs and oil prices, okay? That's all it is. And the red lines, the 2 red lines that go up and down, what those are is the point that it hit $70 a barrel on the way down in the last 2 ups and downs, okay? And the reason I put that in here, if you look at this, the blue line is the price of oil. It shoots up over $100 a barrel, okay? Then it starts coming down pretty fast, but look at that purple line, the rig count, it keeps going up until you get to 70, and then it falls like a rock, okay? Now let's go over here to 2015. Same thing, price of oil gets up over $100 a barrel, and rig counts going up, then the price starts falling. Again, that blue line starts going down pretty rapidly, but the rig count keeps going up until you get to 70. Then it drops like a rock. Now look over here. This thing starts back up. This rig count starts back up, and you start doing more wells when the price is around 30. Now here's what that tells me. Thank you for putting that up, I appreciate that. That was some quick tech I asked him to do. Here's what that tells me. That tells me the energy world has completely changed in the last 4 years. Because what that says is, in 2008 and 9, and 2014 and 15, 70 was about the marginal cost of a barrel of oil that came out of a fracked well. Because as long as you were above 70, they kept drilling. The minute you went below 70, man, they fell off like a rock. Okay? 100 or 80 didn't matter. 70 was the kickoff point. Both times. Okay? Today, well below 70, it's taken off like we've never seen it before. And what that tells me is the cost has come down that much. There are tens of thousands of wells that can be drilled in this area right now where they can make money in the 30s. There are 20s and 30s of thousands of wells where they can make money in the 40s. okay? And that's a fundamental change in the oil market, and fracking in and of itself brought a fundamental change. I had a geologist explain this to me one time in a way I could understand it, because science was not something I took a lot of in college. But what he told me was, he said, Ray, he said, from the time they drilled the first well in Titusville, Pennsylvania in the 1850s, up until about 15 years ago or so, he said what oil people did was they tried to find places where oil has seeped out of rocks over billions and billions of years and pulled up somewhere and then go get it. He said, what fracking does is it gets you inside the rocks, because they're very dense rocks. It takes a long time to get that oil out of there. And it's not surprising we have all this fracking in the same place we had all the other oil, because you get out of the rocks for it to seep out of. But now we can go get all the oil. And Scott mentioned the centuries of oil. Let me just kind of give you perspective here. The first well was drilled over Mitchell County in the Permian Basin in 1920. Since that time, there's been a lot of drilling. We all know that. They've taken out, they're not exactly sure, they didn't measure it real well at the beginning, but somewhere between 35 and 40 billion barrels of oil in a century, okay? That's a lot of oil. It's a century from 1920 till now. In a century, they took that much out. The reserves that are now proven, now that the stuff inside the rocks, they don't even get to it, the proven recoverable reserves that are public today are between 70 and 80 billion barrels. So that's 2 centuries worth of what we did the last century right there. Every oil company will tell you, we got some that everybody doesn't know about. Okay? and so the real number is somewhere way above 100. I don't know if it's 120 or 150 or 160. They won't tell us. But it's way up there. So the point is, there are centuries of oil out here now. And what is happening is, and I'm doing a lot of talking before I get to this stuff, because it won't take me long to go through these slides, and I say I don't like slides anyway. But the reason this is so important is, historically, as you well know, and I've lived out here a long time, and before that I lived by the East Texas oil field when I grew up, and I knew everybody and worked out here for years and years before I ever married Lorraine. So I know this area pretty well. And what used to happen is price of oil goes up, and everybody runs out here and starts drilling. And they haul people in, and they put them up anywhere they can put them up, and it's 10 days on and 10 days off or whatever, and they get them in and out of here and that sort of thing. And they've been doing that for a long time, for decades and decades. Oil goes up, then oil goes down, they all leave. Okay? And the reason was, oil had to be a certain price for them to make money. Okay? All of a sudden, they're looking there saying, we've got these huge fields out here. There's several major oil companies with 1 million acres right out here in Delaware. I mean, we're talking huge amounts of acreage. And they sit there and they say, okay, we can make money at 80. We can make money at 70. We can make money at 60, 50, 40, in some cases 30, and the technology keeps getting better. That number is likely to keep going down. I mean, it's on a pretty stiff drop. I don't think it'll drop that fast anymore. It's going to be free pretty soon. But it's going to level up. But it's going to keep gradually going down because they keep finding new ways to do this better and better. Better ways to use water, smarter drill bits, all kinds of stuff they're doing right now.
More competition.
You what?
More competition.
More competition? Absolutely. And so all this stuff is going on right now. And so what that says is, we've got all this production out here. It would sure be nice if we had a permanent workforce. And we didn't haul people in when it's high and take them out when it's low and try to deal with getting people in and out every couple of weeks. And I've often told people over in Odessa, I can see that yard back there by the railroad tracks from my house. And you can get some pretty good barometer of what's going on in the oil industry, how many rigs are stacked up out there. And from what I understand, they can have a rig out of that yard out in the field drilling in 72 hours. That's pretty amazing. They can have a crew sober in 2 weeks. Okay, so it doesn't take long to get out there. They can be out there pretty fast. But wouldn't it be nice if they had that crew here all the time and they were going to drill no matter what the price was? And that's what they're talking about doing now. Now we don't have a guarantee. Nobody signs up on dotted line saying I want to do this. But if they look at their own economics, that's what it looks like they're going to do. That's what it makes sense for them to do. And then it makes sense to have that permanent workforce. That workforce that lives here, is invested in the community, everything else. Any of you that own a business, you like for your workers to live close by, to have a stake in the community, to shop here, to go to school here, to go to church here, to work here. And that would be nice for the oil industry too. They just always operate on this boom bust cycle. And I'm not saying there'll be more drilling at 80 than there will be at 40. That's a given. But instead of it looking like this, it's going to look more like this. We'll be drilling all the time. You'll see little peaks and valleys within the ongoing drilling program. That opens up a whole new way to look at the work. Okay? and a whole new way for the oil companies to look at the world. I assume you said 17 oil companies, you're probably talking about Permian Strategic Partners, I don't know if it was that or something else. And they're putting, they're putting their money where their mouth is on a whole lot of stuff about housing, about transportation, about healthcare, about education and everything else they need to do to try to make sure we have a workforce out here that will support what they're trying to do for generations to come. And that's never happened before. That's never happened before. They come in, they make their money and they leave. We've never had them putting hundreds of millions of dollars into making sure they have a sustainable situation before. So it's a very, very different world.